Hey guys, it's another episode of Doc Lil Talks Comics, and today we're going to talk about what books I picked up on Wednesday, August the 26th. Man, it is almost Christmas. I just bought my first couple of Christmas presents. Shh, don't tell my wife because they're for her and Noah. So I'm trying, guys, trying to stay ahead of the curve. All right, let's take a look at these books I've got behind me, and the first book I'm going to pick up is the book of the week. And it is Concrete, Stars Over Sand, issue 3 of 5. And we have Paul Chadwick doing the writing and the artist and the art duties on this one. And you get to see Larry and Maureen, and they're still trying to find Concrete. He's been missing ever since he got hit by a lightning bolt, lightning strike, I should say, in the first issue of this miniseries. And so she ends up hiring a pilot named Larry, and they go out into the desert. And here in the desert, one of the pieces of the shaft on this helicopter comes loose. And Larry eventually sees it and tells Maureen, he says, uh-oh. And he says, see that broken linkage up there? And she said, yes, it controls the pitch of the blades, whether we climb, descend, or maintain altitude. And Maureen says, are we going down? And he says, not yet, we're still climbing, and I have no way to stop it. Meanwhile, some hikers do end up finding Concrete out in the, no pun intended, concrete jungle out there, out in the desert. They find him. And it says he is some sort of jinxed monster pursued and marked for destruction. And she eventually, Courtney, ends up having to undo her backpack because he throws rocks at them. He still doesn't know quite who he is. And Maureen tries to climb up on top of the helicopter and fix this linkage that has fallen down. And let's see. It says she drops the control rod, the ride resumes. She eases into the cockpit to rest a moment. So this issue pretty much is a adventure of Concrete trying to find himself again, and Maureen trying to find Concrete, and then Larry ends up finding out which direction Concrete is, moving in. And in the end, there's a black bear that gets involved. So we have three main characters all kind of moving towards the center. But what's going to happen? Is it going to be an encounter, as the book says? What's going to happen at the beginning of issue 4? All right, next up, Conan the Barbarian, issue number 34 by Jim Zub with Fernando Dagnino as artist. And we have the continuation of the story of the briny wren. And it has come ashore. And Conan and his friends find this obelisk filled with bones and ominous features. And they go and they find these little, almost like little dinosaur type creatures. Something something that time forgot. And as they go through here, eventually they find the mama dinosaur animals. Now, they're not truly dinosaurs, but they're close enough that that's what we're going to call them for this purpose. And it just starts ripping into people, including Conan. And it says, Conan has no time to choose the form of his pending demise. And then the next panel, thus, with the instincts of a Cimmerian well-bred for battle, he chooses an unlikely third path, survival and dominance, down there at the bottom of the page. So he starts fighting back, whereas everybody else pretty much gives up. And we have, let's see, I knew his name just a second ago. Morley. I was trying to say Fandral, but that's from Thor. But Morley here looks like a swashbuckling swordsman like Errol Flynn, but he's dispatched pretty quickly. leaving Valeria, who is the girl that he's trying to get with and who has already gotten with Conan, to stop this giant beast. And as everyone is sitting around the fire that night, then the captain of the ship of the Bren ends up telling people, you know, I've been on 2 ships before, and both of them I've been the only survivor. So there's, you know, you've got some people that are scared, and then Conan listens to a story from Morley, and he says, "'Twas a spectre invisible to sight, save for them ruby red eyes that pierce the night." And so Conan starts to think, and he's like, wait a minute, somebody that you can't see, but you see the red eyes. And he remembers when this character grabbed him and was fighting with him, but he couldn't quite see who it was. So he says, what do you know about this red-eyed ghost? And Morley says, oh, it's just pirates' pranks, fodder for a few laughs. And he says, perhaps, but be cautious tonight. And in the end, you get to see that Morley has been taken over by this red-eyed character, and he tries to kill Valeria, and she tries to scream, but she can't. And in the end, she stabs him in the eye to get away, and manages to call out and say, brothers, we're under attack, right before the evil fiends, robed assassins show up. And so they fight their way back. And she goes to stab Morley and try to mortally wound him to give him a chance, to give her a chance to escape. But it says a moment more and she bleed him out with half a dozen gushing wounds. And then it says a moment more is a moment that they shall not allow, talking about those robed figures again. And so he goes to find Conan next. He said, Conan lies here hidden in his sail blanket. He must have drank the captain's stashed rum to sleep through our attack. And come to find out, he's alive and well. So we're going to see in the next issue, part 3 of this storyline, what happens because Valeria, Captain Quinn, and 7 other sailors have been taken and he is alone. Whoever these jackals are, whatever their intent, he'll make them all pay with a ledger bathed in blood. So another amazing issue of Conan from Jim Zub and Fernando Dagnino. All right. After that, we have Amazing Spider-Man number 35. It is the Legacy issue number 999. So we are, of course, going to leave off on a cliffhanger. You get to see Aunt May have a heart-to-heart with Peter, which is usually what happens in either the big cliffhangers or the one right before it. And, of course, something happens to May as he is talking to Agent Griffin. And Agent Griffin, through this whole issue, you get to see that Spider-Gwen, something that was off. And she was attacking people. And so eventually she gets right. And Agent Griffin says, we've got to take her in. We've got to, assess her. And Peter says, I'm not gonna let you do that. This is not gonna happen. And meanwhile, while they're talking, he gets a phone call and he disconnects it, and then finally he picks it up, and he says, I'm getting a call that I have to take, because this phone number's rang me 3 times. And it ends up being her boyfriend, Rick, May's boyfriend, Rick, and he tells Peter that something has happened to May, and she's at the hospital. So that's going to set up the massive issue 1000, which we are unfortunately not going to get for a month now because it got pushed back from the 16th to the 30th of September. But to me, this is one of Joe Kelly's best issues. It absolutely hits the spot on who Peter Parker is, why his characters are so important to him. There's even a moment after May leaves that Ray comes out and gives Peter a hug, and she says, I would go through the armies of whatever to save this woman's life and to make her happy. And so this is one of the best issues, I think, of Amazing Spider-Man that Joe Kelly's written. So if you guys have been waiting, I would say wait no longer. Make sure to pick up this issue and then issue 1000 in a month. And let's see where this Ravage character and all of the other ins and outs of Peter Parker's life end up going. All right. Next up, we have Corpse Night, the penultimate issue by Michael Chavez and Matthew Roberts. And Foy's father has been killed. And she ends up talking to one of Joan of Arc's men. And he says, your father was a warden. I could tell by how he fought and how he killed. They were relentless and merciless. I see that same fire within you. The wardens hunted witches, warlocks, and necromancers. And so you get this really cool artwork showing what her father was before all of this went down. And she says, he's talking to her, and she says, what are you saying? And he says, it wasn't God that brought your father back. It was you. You brought him back. Your love was so pure that you were able to resurrect him so that he would come back in another life and protect you all over again. So the guy says, I thought Joan had this power. I know that you heard the story of the baby that she saved. I searched for that mother, for that baby, and I found them. But it was just a story. Joan is a liar and delusional. So he's plotting against Joan to see Foy come to something bigger. And he says, I can be a mentor, and in time, maybe I could even be the father that you're searching for. And she says, no, that's not who I am. That's not who he wanted me to be. And then another character comes behind her and says, okay, well, we'll just have to find out what makes you so special. And whacks her on the head with a sword. And let's see. So you've got the White Mask, who is Gilles de Rais. And it says, history buffs and Joan of Arc fans will know that Gilles de Rais was a real lord, friend, and ally of Joan of Arc. There's even fan fiction out there with Joan and Gilles as lovers. So you get to see this character, Gilles, that is trying to turn Foy into something like her father. Not her father when he was resurrected, but her father as he lived as a man. And Foy says, no, that's not who I wanted to be. That's not who he would want me to be. So you get to see all of this kind of culminating. Is Joan going to live? Is Foy going to live? Her father is gone now, so is he going to return even after they lopped his head off and set him on fire? I don't know, but this has been a really great story, and I love that I've been able to follow it, and I hope you guys are following as well. All right, and the next to last book that we have here, well, actually the last book I'm going to talk about in this video is going to be Green Lantern number 38, and you have The Condiment King. This is written by Jeremy Adams with art by Xermanico, and you get to see Kyle Rayner have to come to terms with working with Major Force. Okay, Major Force was Kyle's very first villain back in Green Lantern 54 because he killed Kyle's girlfriend, Alexander DeWitt, and stuffed her into a refrigerator, and that started the whole women in fridges movement. It was a thing. It was a thing 30 years ago. But you get to see Kyle talk to Odyssey, and he says, I really don't feel like talking. And she says, I didn't think that you did. And he says, he killed somebody that I loved, and now the Justice League is like giving him a second chance. You know, how can somebody who did what actions he did so maliciously to my girlfriend, and then the Justice League is like, oh yeah, we're going to pardon him and see how things work out. And so she says we could go, we could take leave, leave it all behind. that's what I do when things get complicated. And about that time, you get to see that you've got Feast, say fellow eaters against syndicated takeout. And so there's the Feast, and you've got the Culinary King fighting against all of these different characters. So it's kind of funny and kind of not, because you know these characters take themselves very seriously, but it's hard to take characters that are based on, you know, food seriously. These two muscle-bound guys, we're your worst nightmare. And somebody said, what about a slice of justice? And then somebody else says, I call this dish Pain Kung Pao. And in the meantime, we see what's going on with Hal Jordan, and he gets to reboot, you know, his ring for the first time in a long time, and he's at full power. So he's still trying to figure out this mission that he's been sent on to try to find what the Book of Oa has said to him. So great job, guys. You guys are just still banging it out 3 years plus into this run. So hopefully Jeremy Adams and Xermanico will be on this title for a long, long time. All right, and the last one that I wanted to show you the cover to is Hammer Fist issue number 1. And this is written by Rick Remender with art by Steve Epting. And it's about a father, a daughter, a bank heist. And that's all I'm really going to tell you. But I've been looking forward to something else with Steve Epting's pencils and inks on it for a very, very long time. So I'm excited to see how this particular book pans out. All right, guys, and that's what I've got for you this particular comic book week. What did you pick up at the shop? What are you loving? What are you hating? What are you picking up and what are you dropping? I did not get a chance to pick up Terminal issue number 2, but the first issue didn't really hit with me that well. It was fun. It was extremely well done art-wise, but I wasn't, like I said, I like the X-Men back in X-Men, you know, the animated series, but I never was a huge X-Men fan. So the nostalgia that I think they are trying to push out here by bringing on Andy Kubert and things like that don't really resonate with me. So I may pick up Terminal 2 if I get the opportunity, but for right now, I'm probably not going to continue on with that series. It just didn't hit me the way that The Walking Dead hit me. And I know that not everything that Kirkman does can just come out of the blue and just do that to you. But it was not the super mega have to have it kind of hit that I was looking for. Anyway, guys and gals, thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe if you like this and want more content just like it. And in the meantime, the next video I've got coming up is going to be an initial assessment on Hammer Fist issue number 1. So come back and join me for that in the next video. Thanks and take care.